Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
The company Opel is a fairly well-known automaker from Germany. The brand is of German origin, although this does not mean that the cars are produced on the territory of Germany. Opel cars are in good demand among consumers. This can be explained by a decent price-to-quality ratio. At the same time, one of the key reasons for the ability to offer good cars at a reasonable cost is the competent organization of the production process. The brand has distributed its enterprises in different regions and countries. Due to the fact that the production facilities are distributed in different geographical locations, it allows saving on labor costs. Supplying cars to the nearest dealerships, ensuring efficient supply of original spare parts and components, providing technical support, etc. The fact that the production facilities are distributed in different geographical locations makes it possible to save on labor costs. Deliver cars to the nearest dealerships, provide effective supply of original spare parts and components, provide technical support, etc. Allows the brand to offer good quality cars at affordable prices. But the branching of production does not allow to clearly understand the country of Opel car manufacturer. Therefore, potential buyers have many questions regarding the origin of vehicles of the German brand. It is necessary to find out and understand where Opel Astra is assembled and where family Opel Zafira is assembled, as well as a number of other representatives of the model range of the company. Producing countries. If we talk in general terms about whose manufacturer Opel is, then we can say that it is Germany. The brand is purely German. But here the question is rather not about whose production under the name Opel, but where the assembly is carried out. Although a car with an Opel nameplate is positioned as German, but in practice there is some difference in whose actual country the manufacturer is. In fact, we are talking about a German brand assembled at factories in different countries. Such a principle is used by almost all leading automakers. After all, everyone understands that the same Mercedes cars are not assembled exclusively in Germany by pedantic Germans. Opel, which until recently was a part of General Motors, which already gives grounds to call the brand not only German, but also American, has several enterprises. Moreover, General Motors specifically limit the production of Opel cars at its plants, because at the moment it does not count on the German brand. You will learn about the situation with the company a little later. Some problems with expanding the influence and presence of Opel in the international market are due to the fact that these cars are mainly created for European consumers. Because of this, in the United States, South America, Asia, the autos are not in special demand. It is possible to distinguish several plants and production lines scattered in different countries, namely, Germany. All premium class cars, i.e., the most expensive models of the company, are assembled here. Engines are also assembled in Germany, which are then sent to assembly lines in other countries. Germany is still the main production springboard. Europe. There are several branches centered around European countries where full-cycle assembly takes place. These include Poland, Belgium, Spain, the UK, Austria, and Hungary. In France, exclusively assembly from components is carried out. At the same time here Opel is assembled at the enterprises of other brands. Turkey. Here are supplied ready assemblies, so the Turks only have to put them together. When it comes to the question of where the same popular Opel insignia is assembled or who is the manufacturer of the compact Opel Corsa, many people often first think of China or India. Yes, many companies, including both leading automakers and current auto giants, are widely using the Middle Kingdom and India to assemble their cars. This is due to the financial benefits of such production. But such a trend has not affected Opel. Also, the manufacturer does not use plants in Indonesia and South America. Therefore, you should not believe that the popular Opel Vectra is actually assembled in some Chinese province or Indonesian city. Main plants. Some car enthusiasts are interested in where Opel Mokka is now assembled for consumers from Russia and whether the cars of this brand really continue to be assembled on the territory of the Russian Federation. Up to a certain point, Opel allocated several of its main production lines in Germany, Poland, the UK, and Russia. Germany, where 3 enterprises are located, assembles. 2 facilities in the UK concentrate production of the Astra, Astra ST, and Vivaro models. And Polish facilities are responsible for the production of the Astra, Astra Classic, and Zafira. For Spain, Corsa and Meriva are considered the key models. Read also, what is a plunger and what are its differences compared to a piston? But there is still an open question as to which factory can be the assembly of Opel Astra, Mach-E, Anthera, etc. models. The answer to whose assembly line produced these cars depends largely on the year of production of the car. The point is that earlier it was not difficult to find out where Opel Anthera or Insignia was assembled for Russia, since the car assembled on the territory of the Russian Federation was just going to domestic consumers. But nowadays it is not possible to assemble a number of models in Russia. Some models were indeed produced at Russian enterprises. But now not a single car is produced. And in its time, the production of Opel cars was quite active and large scale. And still it is interesting to know what capacities of what plant in Russia were used for this purpose, and where in due time Opel, Astra, and other not less popular among Russians models of the German automobile brand were created. Assembly of German cars was concentrated in St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. Moreover, the following models were created here: Astra, Zafira, Anthera, Insignia, Meriva, Astra ST. Long enough ago it became known where the production will be moved to and where the same Opel Mach-E, Astra or Zafira will now be assembled. Over the past few years, after Opel left the Russian market, the situation with production facilities and their location has changed a bit. Representative offices appeared in South America and South Korea. On the territory of the Russian Federation, Opel produced its last car in 2015. Let's find out who assembles and produces some Opel cars available in the Russian Federation, instead of domestic plants in Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg. Different versions of the Astra model, among them Classic and Sport Tourer, have been moved from St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad to assembly lines in the UK. The Anthera and Mach-E models are now produced by Mexicans. Although for a while, South Koreans were also involved in it. Then the assembly in Korea was cancelled, but Mexico remained in business. If earlier Zafira was produced in Kaliningrad, now these tasks are performed only on the territory of Germany. Meriva until the last was assembled on domestic assembly lines, but after 2015, production moved to Poland. According to available information, at the moment the demand for Opel cars among Russians is quite high. Therefore, there is a possibility that in the next or already in 2020, the German brand will resume cooperation with Russian enterprises. And Opel cars of domestic assembly will appear again. Although, given the recent news, the expectations of many may not coincide with reality. Opel is unstable, and its future is rather cloudy. Whose Opel is it now? To this day, many car enthusiasts claim that Opel is a purely German brand. This is true, but back in 1929, the company was part of the General Motors auto concern. The history developed then rapidly, then gradually. Opel had incredible ups and very painful downs. However, there has never been the slightest doubt that General Motors will not give up its European business represented by the Opel brand. But everything turned around in early 2017, when suddenly the management of the American concern announced the intention to sell Opel. But along with it, the English subsidiary brand Vauxhall was going under the hammer. The motives turned out to be more than prosaic. Loss-making. In recent years, Opel and Vauxhall did not bring the company a profit at all. On the contrary, the enterprises were incredibly unprofitable, and the buyer was found quickly enough. It turned out to be an Automobile Association PSA, which includes such companies as Citroën and Peugeot. Many people wondered why suddenly European car companies, which themselves only recently were in a state of deep crisis, but managed to recover a little and achieve good success. But the logical question becomes as to the expediency of the purchase of the united PSA and profitable and problematic enterprise Opel. In fact, PSA is buying its competitor, as Opel is mainly focused on consumers of the European market. So it can be assumed that the French want to buy a direct competitor and then simply close all the enterprises. A strange move that bears little resemblance to the truth. Another option is an attempt to join forces, bringing together the rather impressive brands of Citroën, Peugeot, and Opel to displace Volkswagen from the leading positions, as well as to cope with the eternal rival Renault. That is, PSA has ambitions to take a strong second place on the continent. Read also, how to act correctly to the driver in a skid depending on the type of drive of the car. General Motors' position as clearly shows the analytical documentation provided by General Motors. Since 1999, their European business, that is, the production of Opel cars, is purely unprofitable. In 2009, there was a serious financial crisis, in which the American corporation also suffered. Even then, GM was set to sell Opel because of its chronic unprofitability and unprofitability. Moreover, the company even managed to reach an agreement with representatives from Canada and Russia, i.e., there was a real possibility that Opel would eventually become Russian. But it was only at the very last moment that the deal fell through. Whether this is good or bad, it is difficult to judge now. When General Motors abandoned the idea of selling its European brand, few doubted that the corporation would decide to sell in the future. After all, after the failed deal, the Americans began to pour a lot of money into the development, establishment, and modernization of Opel. Although several plants had to be closed, including German and Belgian assembly lines, huge funds were invested in parallel in problem enterprises. As a result, Opel actively undertook to modernize its production, develop new models, improve marketing, and raise its ratings. As a result, the efforts were not in vain. In Europe, the situation has significantly improved. Opel-branded cars have become in demand and quite popular. And here General Motors sincerely began to believe that for almost 20 years their European automobile brand will finally finish the reporting year with positive dynamics, will earn and will not go into a minus. But expectations did not coincide with reality. At the end of 2016, operational losses amounted to an impressive almost $260 million. At that time, representatives of General Motors explained it by the fact that there was a sharp devaluation of the British currency, as well as the UK decided to withdraw from the European Union. PSA's intentions and the winning position of the Chinese not everyone knows, but back in 2012 a certain strategic alliance was signed between General Motors and PSA. At that time, the European Association of Automakers Citroën and Peugeot were experiencing bad times and were actually on the verge of bankruptcy. GM helped their European colleagues and even temporarily held about 7% of PSA shares. An unusual alliance was created to organize joint purchase of components and develop models under PSA and Opel brands on joint platforms. As a result, there were such cars as Crossland X from Opel, actually created from Peugeot 2008. And also it is impossible not to mention the crossover Grandland X, produced under the brand Opel, although in fact it was a redesigned 3008 from the French Peugeot. The result of all these rather unexpected turns was the sale of the Opel brand to PSA at the end of 2017. Experts are sure that the main goal of European car companies Peugeot and Citroën is exactly the absorption of the European competitor, to further reduce excess production capacity in Europe. Moreover, the French will probably not cut jobs at home, as about 13% of PSA shares are on the balance sheet of the state. The cuts will be implemented through England and Germany. We should not forget about another 13% of shares owned by the Chinese automaker Dongfeng. It is he, according to analysts, wins in this situation more than others. After all, only the Chinese company will have at its disposal not only quite interesting and relevant modern technologies from Citroën and Peugeot, but also the largest design center of Opel. This will allow the enterprise from the Celestial Empire to significantly expand its lineup, improve the quality and recognizability of its brand, without making special efforts to develop new technologies. Given the current situation, it is very difficult to give a forecast as to where Opel brand cars will be produced in the future and whether the company will not cease to exist. The preconditions for this are there. And after the move to PSA, the risk of Opel's disappearance is becoming more and more likely. In conclusion, the production of Opel cars is a truly international endeavor, with key manufacturing plants located in several countries, including Germany, Spain, and Poland. Each facility plays a vital role in the assembly and innovation of Opel vehicles, contributing to the brand's reputation for quality and efficiency. By understanding the geographical diversity of Opel's production network, we gain insight into the global automotive industry and the collaborative efforts that drive it forward. Thank you for watching, and we hope you found this exploration of Opel's manufacturing landscape informative.